From the United Nations in New York, I'm Melissa Fleming, Undersecretary General for Global Communications, and we're here today to talk about water. Why water? Because it is essential to our very survival, and yet millions of people still lack access to clean and safe water and sanitation. Also, the UN 2023 Water Conference here at the United Nations headquarters is gathering, aiming to mobilize global leaders around a water action agenda, a bold water action agenda, and to galvanize the innovative work that is already being delivered to water-deprived communities. So two of those innovators are here with me in the studio today. They are co-founders of water.org. Matt Damon, actor, producer, screenwriter, and activist, and Gary White, CEO and entrepreneurial driver behind water.org. And water.org is a global nonprofit organization working to bring safe, accessible, and cost-effective water and sanitation to the world. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining us today. I'm going to ask each of you, though, why water? How did you get involved? And what inspired you to found this organization? And let me start with you, Matt.
Well, I think as I was starting to learn, get a deeper understanding of issues of extreme poverty, I was just really shocked at how water underpinned everything, and just how it really touched all of these different issues. And nobody was talking about it, because I think it's so, for people like me who grew up here in the United States, it's very hard to relate to. You know, I mean, I spent my life only a few steps away from a clean drink of water, whether it was my kitchen sink or my bathroom sink. And so it was this incredibly important issue that was affecting, as you say, millions of people's lives. 770 million people don't have access, and over 2 billion don't have access to sanitation. So it's a massive health issue. It's a massive issue. It touches everything. It really affects women and girls. They are disproportionately affected by this. Millions of girls aren't in school because of this, because they're collecting water. And so I got very interested in the issue, and I'll try to do this as fast as I can. I realized I needed to partner with the best person I could find in this space, who was doing the best work, and that led me to Gary, and so we co-founded water.org 14 years ago. Yeah.
That's a great segue to Gary then. Gary, what were you already doing in the water space, and how did Matt find you, and what inspired you to get into working on water?
Yeah, no, I think certainly the things that Matt mentioned were first and foremost for me. You know, just the sheer inequality of it, that we should live on a planet where still, 700 million people don't have access to water. I mean, that's insane. That all that we've achieved as a society, a global community, and we still can't get water to those folks. It's just inexcusable. So there's a sense of indignation about it, I guess. And building on that, what got me involved was I knew that there were solutions, right? I was studying engineering at the time, and there was no reason. We knew how to make water safe. Why can't we just make it happen for everybody? But then I think as water.org evolved, it was like, what's really underlying this at the end of the day is access to financing. And that's a really big part, I know, of all the SDGs is financing, but particularly with water and sanitation. The infrastructure around the world where there is water now is falling into disrepair. That's a huge carbon burden in terms of the antiquated technology that we're using in energy sources. So to me, we knew that there were solutions, and we knew if we could help innovate those types of solutions to get them to some of the world's poorest, then we had a shot at getting everybody safe water and sanitation.
Okay, so financing, big issue, and I'm going to ask you a little bit about those solutions first, but I'd like to ask Matt, was there like one moment in your travels that really just was the light bulb? I mean, you talked about how water is the problem that underlies so many things, including girls not going to school. Is there one?
Actually, yes, and related to that, because it was the very first water collection I went on. This was in 2006. And I went with a girl. I was waiting for her when she came home from school. It was this planned meeting we had to go on a water collection together. We were in rural Zambia. And she was 13 or 14 years old, I can't remember, and we went for this walk together. And I was talking to her through an interpreter, and we just really hit it off. Like she just brought me back to being 14, and you know, I was saying, you know, what are you going to live here when you grow up? And she's like, I'm not living here. I'm gonna move to Lusaka. I'm going to the big city. I'm going to be a nurse. And she was just this really cool kid, and she reminded me of Ben Affleck and I at that age, going like, we're going to move to New York. We're going to be actors, you know, like that's what you do at that age. You have these big dreams and big plans. And it wasn't until I left that meeting and was driving away that I realized had someone not had the foresight to sink this bore well a mile from this kid's house, she wouldn't have been in school that day. She would have been off looking for water for her family. And she was able to have these dreams of someday contributing to the economic engine of her country and being a nurse. And, you know, because this had been taken care of, right? And it wasn't something that she had to solve every day for herself and her family. And so it wasn't just the needless death, the kids who were dying under the age of 5, of completely preventable things. You know, diarrhea shouldn't be a life-threatening situation, and yet it is, right? And so the fact, like as Gary said, that's just unconscionable, but there's also this incredible opportunity cost of like, what are you robbing of people's dreams and capacity and hopes and potential, right? Because that's really what it is. You just stifle somebody's potential to be the most kind of productive and capable and contributing community member and human being that they can be. And so that really kind of lit a fire under me, I think, as well.
Okay, so the absence of clean water and sanitation leads to so many problems. The presence of clean water and sanitation leads to lives that can blossom. So maybe, what has water.org achieved? Like, maybe you could just give us some kind of highlight.
Yeah.
Maybe also a solution somewhere where you could say, if we could only scale this, all that, what did you say, 700 million people don't have access to water and over 1 billion sanitation.
Well, so this part's kind of exciting,
Yeah.
actually. Let me start just because he's going to be modest. So Gary had this idea, this really profound idea that in retrospect, because it worked so well, seems simple and everybody should have thought of it, but they didn't. And basically it was that it was basically repurposing the ideas that Muhammad Yunus introduced, right, around microfinance, but applying them to the water sector. And that was a real thought leap for the microfinance institutions because they tended to do those types of loans that were kind of income-generating loans, right? I will loan you money, you will buy a sewing machine, and you can use the sewing machine to be a tailor, et cetera, et cetera. This was, Gary, from spending his adult life in these communities, was realizing that people were paying for water already. They had to be because they were alive. It was just they didn't have any savings. And so if you could actually front them the money for a loan to make the utility would be, a municipality is like piping water under their feet. They're just not connected to it. So they're leaving their jobs in these kind of urban and peri-urban areas, and they're going to stand in a water line. It's completely inefficient. And, and if we could just connect them and front them the money for a loan, they would have more hours to work at their job. They would be completely capable of paying these loans off. So it was this idea that I have to say has worked out as well as we ever could have hoped. Our loans pay back at over 99%.
Wow.
And we've now reached 53 million people with this. And so that was what scaled us. Like we hit our first million people in 2012, and we had this little event. And I remember Bill Clinton came, and he looked at what we were doing, and we just started this, what we call water credit, this program. And he just got it immediately. And he goes, "This is going to work." He's like, "You just run these numbers up. You run them up." And then we were like, "Okay, yes, sir. That's what we'll do." And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. And now we're hitting a few million every quarter. So it's pretty exciting.
So water credit that empowers people, and also it allows the building of infrastructure that is more modern and hopefully more sustainable.
Well, and you talk about lives blossoming, and just to kind of pick up on Matt's story about how this all evolved to at a kind of a human level, just the blossoming made me think of this woman I'd met in Uganda a few years ago. Her name was Mama Florence. That's the name she went by. She was a grandmother. And she had to get on her bicycle every day and ride someplace to find water from a watering hole or from a public tap or whatever and bring it back for her family. She took out a small loan with us and sunk a well and put a pump on it. And so what she was able to do was to grow vegetables now for her family. And then she took some of the scraps from the vegetable garden as fodder and fed it to the pigs and was raising pigs. Then she used some of the water to start making bricks and selling those. Then she started using the bricks to build some rooms beside her house that she now rents out. So it's just this, talk about blossoming, you know, but for access to that loan and that water source, she wouldn't have been able to do that. And I think you multiply that now by 52 million, and that's the number of people that have gotten access to these microloans through our partner network around the world. And that's been $4.2 billion in microloans that have now generated that helps people's lives blossom.
And the exciting thing about it for us is it's this same story. It's over 11 million loans, so it's this same story repeating itself every time. It's like the poorest and most vulnerable women on earth are doing this, right? I mean, 97% of our borrowers are women, and so it's just this incredible kind of beautiful story that repeats and repeats, and also as the money comes back, you know, it goes out again, and so the philanthropic cost of capital per person reached just keeps going down, right? So in like a classic well system, it would be $25 to give somebody clean, safe water for life. You know, in some of our more mature loan programs, that's under $5 per person. So, and it just keeps going down.
It sounds very empowering also for, for the women.
Yeah,
it gives
exactly.
them...
Yeah, we just get out of the way. It's like you nudge a market towards these incredible people and just watch what they do.
Okay, so what's your message then to the UN Water Summit? Because you still need to reach all those millions.
Well, I think it's, you know, let's look at tapping into finance. You know, once we did water credit and we saw how much demand there was from the bottom up, and then we saw the problem with the infrastructure from the top down, what we've done is create a water and climate fund that's now targeting to reach 100 million people. So it's taking a lot of philanthropy to do that, but it's also through Water Equity, you know, our sister organization that's an asset manager. So Water Equity now has raised more than $350 million in investment capital while we use it to scale up these programs around the world. The challenge is sometimes the regulatory environment isn't right for public-private partnerships. You know, bringing capital into countries and repatriating it can be a challenge. So, you know, trying to bring, you know, solutions that provide different types of capital to the problem to complement and augment philanthropy. And I think that's what we need more, the water ministers and the finance ministers of countries, you know, partnering with us to help bring that capital that they need to reach their citizens.
Equity, water equity. How does one look for that?
Waterequity.org.
You are both very good at grabbing those domains because water.org.
We've been doing this a while.
Yeah, equity.org. So how about you? What would your message be to those hours gathered at the UN for this water conference?
I would echo exactly what Gary said, but say that the message is a really positive and hopeful one. It's that there are solutions, that we can do this. We absolutely can do this in our lifetime, and that's what I would want them to leave a meeting like that, just really feeling confident that this can be done. It's just going to take a lot of work, but if the will is there, we can definitely do it.
Right. So it's not the rich countries delivering, you know, like wells. It is.
No. No, it's not.
It's empowering people.
Yeah, I think that's key. I mean, the 52 million people who took out loans, they only took out a loan if there was a solution that they wanted and that they identified that they needed, not an outside NGO coming in and saying, here's your solution.
Because we've seen a lot of those projects over the years, and you know, half of the water projects would fail within 5 years because of that kind of paternalism that kind of came with the, you know, here, this is your solution, you're welcome. Versus what we always say is nobody's going to take a loan for a solution they don't want, right?
And so
doesn't work
for their community.
It doesn't work for them. That's right.
Right. Matt, just final question, because you are obviously able to garner a lot of attention through your water activism, given your fame. Is that what? Can you maybe just give a story of conversion? Are you able to get your fans on board to support the cause of water when they're all just turning on the tap, maybe?
It's very, very hard. It's something that we struggle with. The grassroots messaging is just so difficult because it takes a minute to start to try to explain this, and it's hard to cut up into a digestible soundbite. And with the first hurdle to clear being that it's a problem at all, right? I mean, I was 35 years old, I think, when I first went on this water collection with this kid, and like I was just floored. I was floored, and and I'm a pretty well-traveled person, and and so it's a hard thing to kind of cut through. We've tried a lot of different things. We try, you know, comedy stuff. We try.
We wrote a book.
We wrote a book.
Wrote a book? What's the name of the book?
It's called The Worth of Water.
Worth of Water.
Yeah, and so
Okay.
we're trying all these ways to cut through, because you know what I am really confident in is when people realize that the solutions are real and that this can be solved in our lifetime. I feel like it will galvanize them, and that's all we need. We just need the energy kind of applied to this problem, and it'll be fixed.
Absolutely. People are hungry for solutions, and they've just been too many problems. So I really thank both of you for your commitment, your passion, your activism on the issue of water. I think the UN Water Conference here at the UN, which is, you know, it's been,
huge.
I think, 30 years since there's been a conference like this. Yeah. So it really will raise that awareness and energy and focus on water issues, and I really appreciate your bringing your work and your voice to this. And now let's turn into the General Assembly for the opening of the UN 2023 Water Conference at the United Nations headquarters in New York.